Okay, let's unpack this. Or maybe let's keep unpacking. Because if you joined us for our last deep dive, you know we only just scratched the surface of a truly wild story hidden down in the Antarctic ice. Today, we're plunging even deeper into the mystery. And just so you know, this is the second part of, well, a multi-segment deep dive on this. Trust me, there's even more fascinating stuff to explore after this session.
Indeed. What's really striking, is how these sources suggest the rabbit hole goes far deeper than initial reports or just common knowledge would have you believe. The amount of detail here, it genuinely challenges our understanding of a pretty pivotal moment in 20th century history.
Absolutely. So, our deep dive today, it really zeroes in on this extraordinary first-hand account. We're going to pull out the most, astonishing facts and insights from the testimony of a surviving SAS soldier. This comes from a transcript found via the Tegemity YouTube channel. That's a channel focusing on, let's say, unconventional history. And this soldier's testimony, it details his chilling experiences, his discoveries inside a secret Nazi base deep within Antarctica. Our mission really for you listening is to extract the core insights from his testimony, try to paint a vivid picture of what he encountered and why this source material is just so compelling. Right, let's start at the heart of it, the interrogation of this SAS soldier, the only one who made it back from this unbelievable ordeal. The immediate puzzle for his interrogators was kind of twofold. First, what happened to his companion, the second survivor, and second, what on earth was this entity they called the Polar Man? Questions were flying, but the soldier seemed, lost. Reluctant, maybe. He just said he'd rather start from the beginning, and that beginning was finding the tunnel.
Yeah, and to put that in context, the source actually mentions the tunnel was found in one of Antarctica's unique dry valleys. Now, that's a critical detail. It helps explain how they could even find it, just find that image we all have of Antarctica being just solid ice. It shows the continent isn't uniform. There are these other possibilities, maybe hidden access points.
Right. So the soldier talks about this group, 30 personnel, a mix of workers and soldiers from their base, Mannheim base, getting orders to explore this tunnel. They went in equipped for something serious, heading many kilometers deep. Eventually, they hit this enormous underground cave. And the weird thing, it was unusually warm. One of their geologists apparently put it down to geothermal heating. Sounds plausible, I guess. And inside this huge cavern, they then found underground lakes stretching even further into the depths. It just keeps going.
Makes you wonder, what did they actually find in that vast cave so far under all that ice? The source claims it was, and this is a quote, "beyond doubt that the Germans had built an enormous base in the natural caves, in fact, a military Nazi city hidden in the Antarctic mountains." So we're not just talking about some hidden bunker here. The details suggest this massive long-term Nazi operation in Antarctica, way beyond anything in official history books.
Wow.
And the soldier's testimony, it gets really vivid. He describes modern docks for submarines, one of which their intel officer actually recognized. But what really filled them with dread were these underground hangars for strange bell-shaped wingless aircraft.
Disc-shaped, like flying saucers.
Pretty much. Imagine walking into an uncharted cave and finding something straight out of science fiction. That must have been the aha moment, Quickly followed by sheer terror.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it just got more unsettling from there. Adjacent to the hangars, they found this huge hole dug into the ice, lit up by floodlights, looked like some kind of excavation. The intelligence officer, after watching through binoculars, was clearly rattled. He's heard whispering, "We're in deep shit," starts scribbling notes concluding the Nazis had dug up some strange buildings hidden in the ice. Just a chilling observation.
And then things escalate dramatically. Alarm sirens suddenly go off, Germans running, grabbing weapons, powerful floodlights start sweeping the cave, then machine gun fire. But here's a critical detail the soldier noticed. Much taller, strange beings were among the Nazis, distinct from them, but seemingly working with them.
Taller, strange beings, working with them.
Exactly. It suggests something much more complex, much more unsettling than just a hidden German base.
You can almost feel that tension rising. A bright spotlight pins them down. Then the sound of an MG-42. Immediate casualties. The soldier recounts this grim sight. 6 of their men, caught by the Germans without pardon, were executed on the spot. He and his companion make a desperate run for the tunnel entrance, planning to blow it, cut off pursuit, but it was too late. The source says the Polar people were already closing in. Okay, so the enemy's right behind them. The survivor and his companion, they have to get back to base. Their main goal now, warn superiors by radio about what they found. But winter's coming fast, rescue chances look slim. Still, They felt it was their duty, their soldiers' duty, to report that secret base.
Which really raises the question of their dedication, doesn't it? They actually split up, a desperate gamble. The companion lures one of these polar people into a bunker. The hope was the pursuers would think only one guy survived.
Did it work?
It worked, tragically, but it cost him his life, and the radio got smashed in the fight. So the remaining soldier is now completely isolated, facing this terrifying reality, just trying to, as the source says, avoid madness.
And this mystery of the polar people. The survivor initially tried to explain it himself, based on their, slave-like behavior. He figured they must be the result of Nazi science experiments, maybe linking it to those rumors about Nazi medical labs in Yugoslavia. He also noticed the base's energy source, volcanic activity providing heat, steam for turbines. But he felt the power needed was too immense. He suspected another unknown energy source.
But what's really fascinating here is the reaction back at their base. Immediate skepticism. The scientist with them, described as an intelligence agency observer, he apparently rejected most of the information disclosed, dismissed the survivor for lack of scientific education.
Seriously, after all that?
Yeah. Suggested his discoveries could not be true, that the soldier had basically lost his mind. But that clashed sharply with the major's view. The major, having been on various fronts, knew the Germans well, knew their unrestrained drive for technological development, including genetics. The major clearly wanted to know more about the enemy. He wasn't dismissing it.
And then that chilling moment when they ask about the escaped polar man. What would he do? The survivor's response is just unsettling. He will hide somewhere nearby. He is cunning. He will wait, watch, and wonder how we taste.
Wow.
Yeah. That apparently provoked the scientists to declare that the sole survivor had gone insane. But the major clearly believed him, ordered guards immediately. The soldier noted the major ate bread from the same oven as him, like he knew the difference between a madman and a terrified, truthful soldier.
And connecting this back, the source says they returned to that dry valley. Remember, they'd been told Antarctica was all ice, yet here's this valley like the Sahara. While they set up a temporary base, the major and the scientist checked out the tunnel walls. The scientist said it was not an ancient passage, and the major added the walls were made of smooth, perfectly pressed granite, but looked unfinished. Hinting at artificial construction, right? Not natural.
And their fears about that escaped polar man.
Confirmed that very night.
Oh no, so he did come back.
He did. But this time, the source says there were no casualties on our side. They lured him into a trap, killed him, and brought the body to the major's tent.
Okay, so now they have proof. What did they find?
Well, here's where it gets really unsettling again. The official explanation after a quick autopsy. The polar man was just a normal man, only a bit taller, warmly dressed and unshaven. His body just produced more hair for the cold. That's it.
Wait, that's it? After the survivor describing them tearing someone's throat out?
Exactly. This raises a huge question. Why did the survivor feel something was being hidden from us? He remembered the creature in the bunker vividly, said it did not fit the scientist's description, and nobody explained how an ordinary, albeit a bit taller, man could tear out another man's throat. The discrepancy was just glaring.
So the very next morning, a new mission. Decisive and grim. The mission was not to rescue, but to destroy the entire base. No ambiguity there. 9 men for the assault team. The narrator, the major, the scientist, the Norwegian guy, and the survivor. Those last 2 were crucial, obviously, because they knew the layout. 2 other soldiers stayed back at the base with the gear and radio, and they packed serious heat. Enough ammunition and explosives to start a small war.
So connecting the threads, the source recounts them going back into the tunnel's darkness. Hours later, they reach that artificially lit, enormous cave again. The survivor points out where their comrades were executed. Grim start. And the description of the base itself is just stark. Everything looked like a cosmic base of an alien civilization from space.
An alien base, seriously.
That's the description. The sheer scale. Personnel swarming like ants. Enormous structures under construction. It suggested the Germans had been there a very, very long time, maybe even before the war started. Meanwhile, the scientist is meticulously documenting everything. Diagrams, sketches, rock samples, photos with this strange small camera. The major, his focus was just destruction.
Right. So they spent 2 days mapping it out, figuring out where to plant the mines. Strategic targets around the cave roof, near the generator, fuel depots, ammunition jumps. But the heavily guarded areas, like the hangars with flying saucers and the submarine docks, they were deemed too risky to target directly. The hope, according to the source, was that the explosions would trigger natural rockfalls, basically bury it so it couldn't be rebuilt. And the scientist, still taking pictures, especially those flying saucers and the unseen and unknown silhouette of that submarine.
But then, a really questionable decision, it begs the question, why risk capture now? The source calls it a dangerous idea, but apparently the scientist clearly had unambiguous orders from our commander. Capture one German worker and one polar man alive.
Orders from higher up? Wow, risky.
Extremely. Capturing the polar man caused so much commotion that he raised the alarm. What followed was this frantic chase back to the tunnel entrance, the polar people leading the pursuit, leaping from stone to stone with long hair. They resembled their wolves, or rather werewolves. Just a terrifying image.
So they get back to the entrance, set the mines, the explosions go off. They're hoping desperately for total destruction, hoping they got their pursuers. But the reality hits hard. We were wrong, very wrong. The mines closed the tunnel, yeah, but the pursuit somehow continued outside.
Outside.
Doesn't say exactly how they got out, just that the chase wasn't over. Heavy casualties among their team. One soldier described as being torn almost in half by 2 blows from a polar man. In the end, only 3 survivors stumble back into the dry valley. The Norwegian, the scientist, and the narrator himself. And crucially, no trace of the tunnel or the base remain. Vanished.
And the aftermath. The suppression, it's striking how immediate and thorough it was. The scientist, he'd reached his final conclusions, still had that camera, all the evidence in his pocket. But their camp was instantly dismantled. They were evacuated under strict orders. Not to disclose what we saw, heard, or even encountered. Total silence.
And the official story.
Completely fabricated. The tunnel was just a natural glacial ravine. The polar people, nothing more than deranged, dirty soldiers. Notice their German identity was deliberately left out. The mission itself, never official. The survivors, narrator and Norwegian included, removed from the armed forces. The scientist, his report, those dozens of photos, all just disappeared. Gone.
Incredible. But the implications didn't stop there, did they? Despite the secrecy, some info apparently leaked. The source suggests elements were disclosed to the Russians and Americans, maybe influencing things like Operation Highjump, that huge U.S. Navy mission to Antarctica in 46-47, which, interestingly, this source also says proved unsuccessful in whatever its real goals were. Just like the SAS mission. And the narrator's personal reflection is really poignant. My last Christmas during World War II was spent on the Antarctic continent in 1945, fighting the same Nazis I had fought every Christmas since 1941. But this expedition, never recognized, wiped clean.
Which naturally leads to the question, if it was so secret, why did another Anglo-Swedish-Norwegian expedition go back to Mannheim and New Swabia in 1952? The source says they were explicitly looking for what the SS team was supposed to destroy. That implies knowledge at a very high level, maybe even reaching the royal family. And it mentions continuous RAF flights over the area, officially looking for base camps, but maybe, just maybe, a smokescreen for other activities.
A smokescreen.
And then there's Admiral Dunitz's Offender Order, May 4th, 1945, talking about the spirit of sea wolves and the long prosperity of our homeland. A bit cryptic for a final surrender, wouldn't you say? Plus, the source mentions 16 German U-boats sunk in the South Atlantic, 42 to 44, involved in secret ops. This apparently confirmed British suspicions about New Swabia being a German war base. And maybe wildest of all, British intel reports about Russian maps with underwater routes for U-boats, leading not just to German bases, but also to inner Earth.
Inner Earth, okay, that's another level entirely. Those reports must have caused waves back then. You see headlines from July 1945, Antarctic Skies report, Hitler was at the South Pole. The source says these shook the world because they were partially based on facts, not entirely made up. And then the mystery deepens with those U-boats surrendering in Argentina months after the war ended. U-530 in July 45, U-977 in August 45, unmarked. Plus U-465 sunk off Patagonia.
The source notes historians often kind of cover up these mysteries of missing U-boats. Well, the interrogations of those captains are where it gets really compelling. Captain Bernhard of U-530, he claimed Operation Valkyrie 2 involved him going to Antarctica, his mission, to deposit many crates, which were apparently documents and relics from the Third Reich.
Relics? Like what?
He didn't specify initially, but Captain Schaefer of U-977 also claimed to have taken relics, including the Spear of Destiny and the Holy Grail.
Whoa. Okay, Spear of Destiny, Holy Grail. That's legendary stuff.
Exactly. The source strongly suggests that the rumors about Hitler and Eva Braun's remains going to Antarctica, that was just a smokescreen, a diversion. Which makes you ask, what were they really hiding? And then there's this explosive revelation from 2003, a letter from 1983, Schaefer writing to Bernhard. He's pleading with Bernhard not to publish his memoirs too deeply in detail. He says the world should never know the truth of the German presence in Antarctica.
He actually wrote that.
Yes, he wrote, "We all took an oath. We did nothing wrong. We just followed orders and fought for our beloved Germany and its survival. Please think again whether it is not better to imagine everything as a fairy tale." Just imagine getting that letter.
Wow. Imagine everything as a fairy tale. That speaks volumes. And the anomalies just kept coming, right? Like U-859, sunk in the Indian Ocean, September 44, found with a chemical cargo that could be a fuel source, an anomaly, the source calls it, and German U-boat supplying Japan after Germany surrendered. There's an account of an unmarked U-boat delivering a new ball-shaped flying device, a German invention to Japan in July 1945. That's 2 months after VE Day.
Think about that timing. It really throws the neat end-of-war narrative into question, doesn't it? And this leads to another point of suppression. Why was the final naval battle of WWII allegedly won by the Kriegsmarine against the Royal Navy on May 2nd, 1945? Why was that suppressed?
A Nazi naval victory days before the final surrender.
According to the source, yes. Claimed it was hushed up in the West to avoid boosting German morale right at the end. The British government never admitted it, but rumors persisted among veterans. And this suppression has to be seen alongside the fact that British intelligence, SIS, knew about Nazi atomic bomb programs like at Peenemünde, thanks to cracking the Enigma codes. They had deep knowledge of German secrets. It highlights what they chose to reveal, and maybe more importantly, what they chose to conceal.
So, after all that, what does this really mean for us listening to this? We've just navigated this maze of secret bases, these bizarre polar people, U-boat escapes, a massive cover-up spanning decades. It's just a testament, really, to how deep some secrets can run and how the history we think we know might just be, well, one layer of the actual story.
Exactly. In the bigger picture, these sources fundamentally challenge that official narrative of how World War II ended. They suggest the fight, or at least a very strange hidden part of it, carried on a scale, and in locations we're only now starting to even glimpse. It really could alter our understanding of those crucial years.
This deep dive definitely leaves us with just so many questions, doesn't it? You have to wonder, what other secrets from that era might still be hidden, maybe right under our noses, waiting to be uncovered? And who would want them kept buried for so long? Look, this journey into Antarctica's hidden history, it's far from over. We've really only scratched the surface of these incredible sources today. There's still more to explore. So join us next time as we continue pulling back the curtain on these stories. You've been listening to The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and stay well informed.